When I was reborn at the moment Ryan Carter asked for a divorce for the second time, I didn't hesitate in the slightest. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the divorce agreement without a second thought. What Ryan didn't know was that a year later, Carter Enterprises would suffer massive financial losses due to betrayal from the top executives at headquarters. The corporation would fall into crisis and, under the combined attacks from its business rivals, his mental state would worsen. It all culminated in bankruptcy. The once glorious Carter Enterprises collapsed overnight, and Ryan Carter, the heir to the corporation, became a penniless man so broke that he had to live in a basement, surviving on instant noodles. Back then I truly loved him. I was willing to endure hardship by his side, even if he had nothing left. As long as I could stay with him I was happy. But what I never expected was that even after he lost everything, the only person in his heart was still his first love. Even when I was pregnant and about to give birth, he abandoned me, classified as a high-risk patient by the doctors, just so he could take care of her child. In the end, because I waited too long for his signature, both my child and I died on the operating table. And that child of his beloved first love. He only had a mild cold. Sign it already, Sophia. What's the point of dragging on a marriage without love? Ryan's voice was calm, almost indifferent. I know you've wasted your youth on me all these years, so I won't treat you unfairly. I'll make sure you're financially secure for the rest of your life. You'll have what most people can only dream of, even if they work their whole lives. At first, Ryan still seemed a little guilty, but as he continued, his tone gradually turned condescending, like he was doing me a favor. I was just a girl from an ordinary family, completely unworthy of someone like Ryan. Back then, I was hopelessly in love, never considering anything else. I never asked for anything from him. Even after we got married, I worked hard to support myself, never once touching the money he provided for my living expenses. I naively believed that by maintaining financial independence, I could preserve the purity of my love for him. But I had never once stopped to think about how Ryan truly saw me. Looking back now, it was only natural that he felt superior. Ryan Carter had never respected me. To him, I was merely a convenient distraction in his moments of loneliness. Well then, thank you, Mr. Carter, for letting someone as ordinary as me rise to wealth overnight, I said with a smile. Having lived a second life, my words carried no sarcasm, just genuine sincerity. The experience of going through Carter Enterprises bankruptcy, of suffering alongside Ryan through those bitter days, had made me realize just how crucial money was. Only when a fool finally wakes up does she truly become clear-headed. The past had faded like smoke in the wind. Money in hand was the only thing that truly mattered. A man might betray you, but money never would. Ryan Carter was the first man I had ever loved. Back in high school, when he saved me from being bullied by upperclassmen, he seemed like a god descending from the heavens. I fell for him completely and utterly, even though his heart belonged to another woman, the one he saw as his first love. I still loved him in silence then. When his first love left him and went abroad, he was heartbroken. Out of spite he married me. I didn't mind. I happily agreed to marry him. I thought that even if Ryan didn't love me, as long as I gave him my sincere devotion, one day he would be moved. For more than 8 years, over 3,000 days and nights, I cared for him, supported him and stayed by his side. Even when he fell into despair after the bankruptcy and ruined his kidneys from drinking, I didn't hesitate to give him one of mine. Even a stone should have warmed up by now. But the moment his first love returned, freshly divorced and crying in front of him, playing the victim, he immediately forgave her without hesitation. He placed the divorce papers in front of me and firmly insisted on ending our marriage. In my previous life, when Ryan first handed me the divorce agreement, I was in complete disbelief. I refused to sign. Perhaps he knew I needed time to process everything, so he gave me some time. A month later, he brought up the divorce again. Maybe seeing how heartbroken I was made him feel a little guilty. This time, the terms of the divorce settlement were even more generous. Not only did he increase the amount of money he offered me by an additional $2 million, But he also gave me the villa in the mid-levels. 2 commercial properties, each over 3,000 square feet in the city's largest shopping district. But this time I wouldn't hesitate. Because I finally understood. A man's love is fleeting, but wealth is forever. Back then, my entire world revolved around this man who never loved me. I didn't care about material possessions at all. I clung to the marriage and refused to divorce him, no matter what. But Ryan Carter kept bringing it up again and again. His attitude becoming increasingly harsh each time. It wasn't until Carter Enterprises went bankrupt, when he no longer had the qualifications or ability to take care of his beloved first love, that he finally stopped mentioning divorce. He couldn't bear to see her suffer hardships. Yet, during the most difficult period of his life, when I was the only one standing by his side, supporting him through everything, helping him through his downfall, the moment things started looking up again, when he managed to rebuild his career, he immediately ran back to serve Shane Lee like a devoted servant. Even now, I don't know whether, at the moment he learned that both my child and I had died on the operating table, he ever felt even a shred of regret. "Sophia, don't say things just to be spiteful," Ryan said in a gentle voice. "I truly hope you'll have a good life from now on. Look at the terms in the divorce agreement. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, just say it. I'll meet all your requests." This was the first time in all the years I had been with him that he had shown such patience, and it was just to coax me into signing the divorce papers. What a joke. How blind had I been all these years? Now, living my life over again without the illusions I once had, I looked at Ryan Carter's still handsome face and felt nothing but disgust. Hearing his words, I picked up the divorce agreement and examined it carefully. Aside from the properties he was giving me, he had also agreed to pay me a $1 million annual allowance for the rest of my life. That lifted my mood a bit. But Carter Enterprises would be bankrupt by this time next year. A so-called installment payment was nothing more than an empty promise. If I couldn't get the money right now, even at a slight discount, the deal was worthless. "Sophia, what are you thinking?" Seeing how seriously I was reviewing the divorce terms, Ryan assumed I was coming up with some new scheme to stall for time. He watched me carefully and asked the question. Just as my expression darkened slightly, I ignored whatever nonsense he was imagining and pointed at a specific clause in the agreement. "If we're going to get divorced, let's make it clean. No lingering ties, no dragging things out. The yearly allowance, there's no need for that. Just pay me the full amount in one lump sum." Ryan froze. He hesitated, then muttered, "You're 29 now. Even if you live to be 80, that's another 51 years. I didn't wait for him to do the math. "I'll round it down for you. Just give me 50 million. Ryan's face darkened slightly. "50 million is nothing to a man like you, is it?" said, smiling. "If you won't give it to me, then I won't sign the divorce papers." I deliberately said it this way, knowing exactly what he was thinking. He was certain I was just stalling for time. Ryan clenched his jaw, then after a long pause he finally said, "Fine. One lump sum, Sophia. If you have any other requests, just say them now. I'll grant them all." Hearing that, my heart leapt. I wanted to immediately sign the papers, transfer the assets to my name, and walk away with my fortune. But instead, I put on a conflicted expression and said softly, "Ryan, I've loved you for so many years. I gave you my entire youth. I was willing to do anything for you. And now you're divorcing me for Shane Lee. Are you really going to throw away everything we've been through? Once you sign this, you better not regret it." Recently, Shane Lee had been pulling out all the stops. After getting dumped by her foreign husband and leaving the marriage with nothing, she had her eyes set on Ryan. Seeing him as a golden ticket, she played the part of the helpless, fragile woman, and Ryan, completely enthralled, was more than willing to play the hero. At my words, a flicker of guilt crossed his face, but in the next moment, his resolve hardened again. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I just don't have feelings for you. And Shane, she's in a very vulnerable state right now. She needs me." I scoffed inwardly. "Ryan Carter, you fool." "Fine," I whispered, as if utterly heartbroken. While he had his secretary revise the divorce agreement to reflect the lump sum payment, I let tears stream down my face. Then, without hesitation, I picked up the pen and swiftly signed my name. The moment I finished signing, Ryan Carter, that pathetic, self-righteous bastard, gave me a long, puzzled look. For the first time he hesitated. A sliver of doubt flashed through his eyes. Was he second-guessing himself? Was he realizing, even if only for a second, that something about this situation wasn't right? My heart clenched in panic. With the fortune I was about to receive, my future was wide open. I could not let this idiot back out now. Absolutely not. I sobbed even harder, my tears streaming down my face, as I slammed the signed divorce papers onto the table in front of Ryan Carter. Sign it now. Right this moment. As soon as you do, we'll go straight to the civil affairs office. I wiped my tears away forcefully, my voice shaking with determination. There are plenty of good men in this world. Do you really think I, Sophia Green, can't live without you? Ryan had always believed that without him I wouldn't survive. Back in college I had been the campus beauty, which was exactly why I was targeted by bullies. And yet, over the years, despite having countless men pursue me, I had never paid attention to any of them. My heart had always belonged to Ryan Carter, and I never spared another man a second glance. That blind devotion, that foolish infatuation, had given him complete confidence in himself. He thought I would never leave him. First, Ryan hesitated, but now, seeing my insistence, he no longer had any doubts. He thought I was merely throwing a tantrum, seizing the opportunity before I could change my mind. He quickly signed his name on the divorce papers. He probably believed that if he hesitated even a second longer, I might cool down and refuse to go through with it. Watching this unfold, I felt an uncontrollable rush of excitement. My money was about to come through. The luxury apartment, the villa, and the commercial properties would soon be mine. But to keep my true emotions hidden, I cried even harder, rubbing my eyes until they turned red, letting my tears fall freely. I couldn't let Ryan suspect that I was actually thrilled. If he had even the slightest inkling of my happiness, he might rethink everything. Ryan Carter, you heartless bastard. I wiped my tears aggressively. Let's go right now. Whoever hesitates is no better than a dog, I muttered under my breath, grabbing Ryan's arm and pulling him towards the door with an air of complete devastation. In that moment, I felt like I was accepting an Academy Award. For years, I had always been gentle and patient with Ryan, rarely losing my temper. Seeing me like this now probably caught him completely off guard. Sophia, I'm sorry, Ryan said with a sigh, nodding toward his secretary. Understanding the silent command, the secretary immediately made a phone call. Moments later, he returned and bowed slightly to Ryan. Mr. Carter, the car is ready. I sat there with a face full of despair, waiting for Ryan to leave with me. Then suddenly his phone rang. Ryan glanced at the screen before answering. Ryan, come quickly. A woman's voice, trembling with distress, came through the phone. Emmy had an allergic reaction to something and passed out. I'm all alone at the hospital with him. The voice on the other end was filled with panic, fear, and helplessness, along with an undeniable reliance on him. I didn't even need to see her face to know who it was. Shane Lee. Even in this lifetime, I would never forget that voice. That voice was the source of my past nightmares. Shane, don't panic. I'm on my way. Ryan didn't hesitate for a second. His tone was filled with urgency and concern, and he didn't even try to conceal his emotions, not even in front of me, his legally wedded wife. Something happened to Emmy. He turned to me, his voice apologetic yet resolute. Shane can't handle this on her own. I have to go. It had happened again. This exact situation had played out before. But this time, instead of feeling hurt and helpless, I was furious. We were one step away from finalizing the divorce. It was like having a perfectly roasted duck placed in front of me, only for someone to snatch it away before I could take a bite. Ryan, harder, do you even hear yourself right now? My voice was sharp with anger. Do you think we're about to go on a shopping trip or to an amusement park? We're going to finalize our divorce, and you're still running off to Shane. Sophia, stop being unreasonable, Ryan said with an exasperated sigh. Emmy is just a child. He doesn't have a father anymore. You should have some compassion. I nearly had a heart attack from sheer rage. This bastard. If we weren't still legally married, and if we didn't have to go to the civil affairs office, I would have slapped him across the face twice. Ryan didn't even wait for my response. Without another word, he turned and rushed out the door with his secretary in tow. I clenched my jaw, grabbed the divorce papers from the table, stuffed them into my bag and stormed after him. Ryan got into the car, and just as he was about to close the door, I squeezed in at the last second. Sophia, why are you following me? Ryan frowned, his expression cold and distant. I crossed my arms and smirked. I'm coming to see exactly how sick Shane's child is. If he's on his deathbed, then fine. But if this is just another one of her tricks, I'd like to see how you justify leaving me behind for this. Last lifetime, Shane had pulled the exact same stunt. She called Ryan right when I was about to give birth, crying that something urgent had happened. Her voice had been full of desperation, making it sound like a life-or-death situation. Ryan, without even thinking twice, had abandoned me, and because of that, my child and I never made it out of the hospital alive. The grief and hatred in my heart surged violently. Sophia, I know you hate Shane, but she and her child are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong. I told you from the beginning I don't love you. The way you're targeting a child is disgraceful. If you don't want to shut up, then get out of the car right now. Ryan Carter had never been gentle with me. His attitude had always been cold and distant. Earlier, he had only softened his tone slightly out of guilt over the divorce, but now, worried about that woman's child, he had completely lost his patience. His face was dark with anger, his hostility undisguised. The hatred in my chest burned hotter, but I suppressed it. If I pushed him too far, he might really throw me out of the car. Such a critical moment in our divorce. I couldn't let him escape. Besides Ryan and Shane, that pair of scumbags would eventually get what they deserved. That didn't stop me from collecting some interest in advance. The rest of the drive was silent. When we arrived at the hospital, Ryan jumped out of the car and ran straight to the nurse's station, urgently asking for Shane and her son's whereabouts. Then, without hesitation, he sprinted down the hall as if a second's delay would be catastrophic. I followed behind him at a more measured pace. The moment I turned the corner and saw Shane and her son sitting perfectly fine in the waiting area, my lips curled into a sneer. The boy, Emmy, who had supposedly passed out, was sitting on a chair, sniffling, his eyes wet with unshed tears. His skin had a few faint red spots, likely from a mild allergic reaction. Beside him, Shane had the same delicate, pitiful expression, her eyes glistening as she reached out to Ryan the second he appeared. "Ryan!" she whimpered as she threw herself into his arms. "You scared me to death. I was so afraid. Emmy is my everything. I was terrified something would happen to him. Thank God the doctor saved him." Standing nearby, I scoffed coldly. "Anaphylactic shock. Hardly. With only a few faint rashes, this didn't even qualify as a mild reaction. There was no way he had passed out. But Ryan, that blind, brainless idiot, believed everything Shane said. Memories of my past life hit me like a storm. My child, my innocent baby, had actually been in danger. He could have been saved, but because of this vile woman, Ryan had abandoned me when I needed him most. Cold, fiery rage consumed me. My vision turned red. Without thinking, I lunged forward and slapped Shane across the face. The sharp crack of my palm against her cheek echoed through the waiting room. Shane barely had time to react before I slapped her again. Then again, my hand flying with years of pent-up hatred. Her stunned expression was almost laughable. I still wasn't satisfied. Grabbing a handful of her hair, I yanked her forward and gave her another hard slap, making sure her delicate, pitiful image was completely ruined. That moment I was no longer playing nice. Ryan was frozen in shock, too stunned to stop me at first. When he finally snapped out of it, his face twisted with rage. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? Are you insane? How dare you lay a hand on Shane?" His eyes burned with fury, as if he was ready to tear me apart. He yanked me away from Shane and even raised his hand about to strike me. I welcomed it. "Ladies and gentlemen, take a good look. These two scumbags are a perfect match for each other," I shouted, my voice echoing through the hospital hall. "Ryan Carter, you would actually hit your wife, your legal wife, for the woman who abandoned you years ago. Do you have no shame?" A crowd had already gathered around us, murmuring in hushed voices. I had planned ahead while sitting in the car earlier. I wasn't just staying silent. I had reached out to multiple media outlets. Ryan Carter was Carter Enterprises' heir. A scandal like this. No way the reporters would miss it. Before we even arrived at the hospital, journalists had already been stationed around the area, waiting to capture every single second of this mess. Now, camera flashes erupted like fireworks. Ryan's hand froze in midair. He wasn't an idiot. He knew what this looked like. If he actually hit me, the headlines tomorrow would be brutal. I could already picture them. Carter Enterprises heir Ryan Carter caught cheating. Wife confronts mistress in public scandal. Legal wife slaps mistress while husband protects his lover. Disgraceful scene unfolds in hospital. Ryan clenched his jaw and lowered his hand, his expression shifting instantly. "Sophia, this is all a misunderstanding. Stop making a scene. Let's go somewhere private to talk." His secretary rushed over, attempting to do damage control, but I wasn't about to let them sweep this under the rug so easily. "Go inside." "Why would I do that?" I snapped, my voice dripping with venom. I refused to be in the same room as that shameless home wrecker. Just breathing the same air as her is disgusting. And that little brat of hers. He's already learned how to act just like his mother. Who knows whose husband he'll seduce in the future? "Sophia, Emmy is just a child," Ryan barked, his face turning pale. I felt a surge of anger and resentment rising inside me. "Sophia, how can you say that about her?" Shane clung to Ryan's arm, her voice trembling with grievance. "I know you've misunderstood my relationship with Ryan, but we've always been innocent. He's only here because he cares about Emmy. She's just a child without a father, and Ryan couldn't bear to leave her without help." Shane, as always, played the victim to perfection. She looked at me with those pitiful teary eyes, as if I were some villain tormenting an innocent mother and child. A few people in the crowd even showed signs of sympathy toward her. I sneered. "Spare me that act, Shane. If you're so innocent, why were you crying in my husband's arms? Ever heard of boundaries, or do you just not believe in them?" I stepped forward, my eyes sharp and filled with mockery. "And why exactly does your daughter not have a father?" "That's not my fault. That's because you were out messing around while married. Your ex-husband did a paternity test and found out the child wasn't his. She's a bastard. That's why he threw you out along with your kid. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to show my face in public. But instead of hiding in shame, you latched onto another man. The man I married. Just because you had no money left. And now you expect me to be polite to you." I didn't give Shane a chance to respond. I exposed her right there in front of everyone, dragging her fake dignity through the mud. She wanted to maintain the image of a pure, helpless woman while clinging to another person's husband. What a joke. I was going to rip that mask off and make sure she lived under the scorn of the public, hiding like the pathetic rat she was. Shane's face paled with panic. She clearly hadn't expected me to know the truth. The reporters around us instantly perked up, their pens moving rapidly as they noted down everything. I felt a sense of satisfaction swelling inside me. Ryan, however, looked absolutely furious. His face was so dark it was almost terrifying. He didn't believe a single word I said. In his eyes, Shane was a perfect, pure, untouchable goddess who deserved the best life had to offer, even when she abandoned him years ago. The reporters were eating this up. Cameras flashed incessantly, capturing every moment of humiliation I inflicted upon Shane. Her carefully constructed image was crumbling before the eyes of the gathered crowd. I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that her secrets were no longer safe. "Sophia, you're making a huge mistake," Ryan finally found his voice, though it was strained with barely contained fury. "This is going to destroy your reputation too. Think about what you're doing." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed through the hospital corridor. "My reputation? Ryan, look around you. Look at what your precious Shane has done to mine. I was the laughingstock of this city for 8 years, clinging to a man who never loved me, while his first love played the innocent victim from afar." I turned to face the crowd of onlookers, my voice carrying clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, the man you see here, Ryan Carter, heir to Carter Enterprises, is about to divorce his wife of 8 years to marry this woman." I pointed dramatically at Shane, who was now cowering against Ryan's chest. "But what you don't know is that Shane Lee isn't even divorced from her foreign husband. She's still legally married, which makes this little scene here not just adultery, but bigamy." The gasps from the crowd were audible. Several reporters started typing frantically on their phones. Ryan's face went white as a sheet. "That's a lie!" Shane shrieked, but her voice cracked with uncertainty. "Ryan, tell them it's a lie." Ryan looked down at her, and for the first time, I saw real doubt flickering in his eyes. The same doubt I'd seen when I'd signed the divorce papers. That sliver of uncertainty that told me he was finally starting to see her for who she really was. "Shane!" His voice was barely a whisper. She pushed away from him, her composure completely shattered. "Ryan, baby, it's not what it seems. I was going to tell you, I swear. My lawyer is handling the paperwork. It's just taking longer than expected because of the custody battle." "The custody battle for a child that isn't even yours," I supplied helpfully. "The paternity test proved it. Your ex-husband wasn't the father, but Ryan here. He's been paying child support for a kid that's not his blood." "How generous of you, Shane." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Shane's face had gone from pale to green, and I could see her calculating her escape routes. But there were too many people, too many cameras. She was trapped. "You know what the funny thing is," I continued, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Ryan's about to lose everything. Carter Enterprises is going bankrupt next year. All those assets he promised me in the divorce settlement. Worthless. But Shane doesn't know that, does she? She's been playing him for a fool, thinking she's about to marry a wealthy man, when really, she's about to marry a penniless one." "Sophia, stop it." Ryan's voice cracked like a whip. "Just stop." But I wasn't finished. I pulled out my phone and showed the crowd the text message I'd received that morning. Confirmation that the investigation into Carter Enterprises' financial irregularities was about to go public. "Bankruptcy, Ryan. Total collapse. Shane's about to find out what living in a basement and eating instant noodles really looks like." Shane's knees buckled. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her perfect facade completely destroyed. Ryan looked between us, his face a mask of horror and realization. "You knew," he whispered to me. "You knew about the company. You knew about Shane. And you still signed the divorce papers." I smiled, feeling the weight of those papers in my purse. "Of course I did. Because unlike you, Ryan, I'm not stupid. I know when to cut my losses and when to take what's mine. And I made sure to get it all in writing, in one lump sum payment, before your empire came crashing down." I walked over to where Shane sat crumpled on the floor and dropped a business card in her lap. "That's my lawyer's number. I'm sure you'll want to discuss the terms of your child support payments with him. After all, you wouldn't want Ryan to be burdened with taking care of another man's child, would you?" Then I turned to Ryan one last time. "Enjoy your life with Shane, Ryan. I'm sure you'll both be very happy together. Especially when you're both broke and living in that basement, wondering how you ended up with nothing." I walked away from them, from the cameras, from the scandal, feeling lighter than I had in years. Behind me, I could hear Shane's sobbing and Ryan's increasingly desperate attempts to convince the reporters that it was all a misunderstanding. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was justice. And as I stepped into the sunlight outside the hospital, clutching those signed divorce papers in my purse, I knew that for the first time in my life I was truly free.